Hey everyone, how's it going? All right, let's check this out. How's everybody doing today? I want to say, hey, thanks for being here as always. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to talk about some vibrato today. That track was actually from my course through Brett Papa called the British Blues Masters, and that's kind of a takeoff on the David Gilmour thing I did. So I want to talk about vibrato being probably one of the most singular defining aspects of anybody's guitar playing. If you look at, if we think about all our favorite guitar players, well, I'd say I'm assuming we have a lot of the same favorite guitar players because we're all here. Vibrato is a huge, huge element of it. And it's the way you can as closely emulate a human voice as possible. And I think that's always kind of what we're going for. Well, at least I am. You know, a great singer, is there anything more expressive than a really great singer? Probably not, because it's a direct connection between you and your voice. So if you listen to, for example, violin, if anybody's ever played violin, when you play a note on the violin, it doesn't sound very good until you vibrato that note. It sounds kind of like, ee, right? And then you play the vibrato and you add it and it suddenly becomes music. And I feel like the guitar can be very much the same way. So if I'm hitting a, an E note. And I got a little bit of a, let me take off the flanger there. I was doing the whole Gilmore jammy there. So I'll take off the flanger just to get rid of some of that flange, for lack of a better word. All right, so without vibrato, the note just kind of goes, right, and it just sits there. So it doesn't have a lot of emotional content. To me, it almost starts to turn into a pitch generator or something, right? It's not very musical on its own. Right? But if I add some vibrato, it becomes something entirely different. Another thing vibrato does, especially if you're on some of your lower strings, there's a lot of overtones in the guitar that can make the note start to go, like, if you know what I mean. If I go to the neck pickup, for example, and hit an E, it's very, but if I vibrato it, well, still a lot of fuzz on this patch, but watch, if I go to the bridge, I'm supposed to go in, and you hear some of those overtones can start to come in and cloud the note a little bit. So when you put on some vibrato, it makes the note sustain longer because of the friction of your fingers against the string, but it also just makes the note sound a little sharper. It makes it do more of an E sound and an oo sound, if that kind of makes sense. All right, so. So the way I would practice vibrato and talk to you about, first let's talk about the actual technique of vibrato. So this can vary, but I found if you're talking about like rock and roll, guitar vibrato, blues rock, all the guys we love, and it's funny, if you look at the thumbnail I put up for this, everybody's got their hand in exactly the same spot in the neck, and their hands look almost identical. And that's Jimmy Page, it's Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, David Gilmour, and Yngwie Malmsteen. So all their hands looked kind of like this in those pictures, which I thought was really funny when I was kind of putting that thumbnail together. I'm like, wow, look at that. They all have the same exact hand position. So let's talk about that hand position, because it's really important. If I'm going to play, let's go to E again. So I want to play a note, say, let's say this D on the 15th fret. What I want to do, now I've got a lot of gain on because I was going for that kind of extended Gilmour sort of thing, but when I'm vibrato, I'm going to play the pitch, and the technique is important as my thumb goes over the top of the neck, right? And it's like I'm turning a doorknob. The vibrato is not coming from my fingers this way, because you think about what string gauge is, like what the pressure is per string gauge. It's really high. So if you use your forearm, actually, I have my thumb come over the top, and I'm using it like a fulcrum, right? So resting the corner of my hand right here, right on the edge of the neck, and I'm locking these fingers up. So if I exaggerate it, it's like that. All right, so these fingers are locking up tight. And if you also notice a few really, really, really important things that I talk to all my students about that I think has been very helpful, is I'm vibrating with my third finger, but I'm not vibratoing like that. You know, I'm not kind of vibrating with one finger and letting it just kind of fly around, because that one finger is not very strong. So I lock my second finger, if I'm vibrating with my third finger, my second finger comes up right behind it, right? So I'm really vibrating with two fingers right there. Moving as one, I'm jammed up against that fret. So I'm not spread out this way, right? If I spread my hand out, like each finger gets a fret, what starts to happen is you lose the energy that you need to really get behind that note. So if I'm over here, my thumb's over here, and I'm vibratoing, my fulcrum is way over here. But if I'm up here, and I have my thumb sort of like right in between, looks kind of lines up right in between my first finger and second finger, you get a much better grip on the guitar. And these two fingers are moving back and forth, up and down, locked together, right? And now what's my first finger doing? It's a great question. My first finger is coming up and flopping down on my G string primarily, so I don't get you know, the foxy lady kind of thing. If you want that, that's how you do it. But so I'm muting right behind it, like that. So if I take my hands off, you're still going to hear some stuff, but you're not going to. So what happens there, if I lift up the first finger, like I said, you get a lot of that bounce on the, you might hear that G string ring out. The other part that's really important is my right hand muting is coming down, the heel of my hand comes down and rests on the lower strings or the notes that I am not vibratoing. So when I'm playing this D note, it's back up here, like if I could do, like everything is muted except for the note I'm vibratoing. Okay, so. See? So I really have control of the net. I can really, you know, work that note. Right? And nothing else is ringing out because I'm muting them. All right, so the first thing I want to do is practice vibrating that one note. It takes a while, so don't feel like, you know, you're sitting like, oh man, this is at a really hard time getting the vibrato together, because it does take a lot of time. I don't know anybody who naturally had good vibrato, and I tell this story all the time. I was a great friend of mine, roommate in college, who actually was in the band Power Man 5000 in the 90s, and he's also in John Bonham's Led Zeppelin thing. Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin thing. He plays bass. His name is Dorian, Heart Song. And we were hanging out one night, and he's like, yeah, can I be honest with you? And I'm like, yeah, sure, man. He's like, you know, your guitar playing sounds great, but your vibrato just sucks. I'm like, oh, thanks, man. And because I had never thought about it. I had the you know, the nervous B sort of vibrato, or the, you know, folk singer vibrato of right? It's very fast. And there's some famous guitar players who I shall not name, who play in probably the biggest heavy metal band who owns Peter Green's guitar, whose vibrato is not refined. So there's the first thing you can do. How was that? We want to make sure we're always going back to our initial pitch. Super important. So we have the hand over the top, fingers are locked up, trying to get this doorknob thing. It will take some time to get used to. Let's try it with the third finger first, the strongest kind of hand motion you can get. And what I'm doing is I'm making sure, here's my note, I'm going above my pitch and returning back down to the pitch each time. Okay, so it's like a mini bend. The thing that a lot of guitar players will do who are inexperienced with it is they don't have enough control over their hand or hand strings, and they push up the note and they don't return down the pitch. That sounds like this. Here's the right way. And wrong. Hear it? That's because you're not letting the string come back to its resting point. And that is really, really important, that you allow your hand to just relax and go back to that the flat string. I can even look at it physically. My string should come back down to being completely straight. And I always want to check my pitch and then work on the vibrato. Pitch, vibrato, pitch, vibrato, right? And I really want to think about what I want my vibrato to be, because it will change depending on the music, what I'm trying to convey, what kind of emotion I'm trying to get across, and all these things I'll talk about in a second. So still back to the technical stuff. I'm really just working that. I'm going to use just my third finger right now. Now you can experiment with how big you want the vibrato or how fast. It's up to you. Those are personal decisions. I can't tell you not to do, but I'm telling you not to do that. Because that's, to me, see, someone like B.B. King's got a little bit of a quick vibrato, but it's not like that. It's beautiful. His vibrato's a little faster, and it's amazing. Or you get someone like Yngwie, where it's wider, you know, like a, right, that kind of thing. Or you get someone like Zakk Wylde, like, he's always got this huge, really aggressive vibrato. My favorite players are the ones who change it according to what they're trying to do, right? Because we're thinking about a voice, we're thinking about really controlling this stuff. You listen to a great opera singer, and they have control over the vibrato. I think, of course, only pops into my head is like Pavarotti, because I grew up in a family. My mom used to play Pavarotti in the house all the time. Just the control over that and the emotional difference it makes when somebody plays, like a great violinist as well. If you listen to them play, it's the control over the vibrato. So, I mean, the guys I always talk about, Clapton, particularly great. Jeff Beck, amazing. John Mayer is great. Joe Bonamassa. Anybody we know is like, oh, that guy's a great guitar player. I guarantee you they got the vibrato rocking. Okay, so now I can decide, well, I want to go, okay, here's the next thing I could think about. I got to try a different string. Now let me get a little bit of a cleaner guitar tone, because that's really, I got my FM3 on here. That's really sustainy. So let me just dial in something else here. Sorry guys, I didn't have it kind of dialed in. I did have it dialed in, sorry. It's live. You realize I wing a lot of this stuff, right? Because it's fun. It's more fun to keep it live feeling. Okay, so I rolled off the gain just because we want to do that, So it's not the gain necessarily that is getting me all the sustain, it's the control in my hand. So, right? Now, I'm going to try changing fingers. So I'm going to go here. Here's my second finger now. Third finger. Second finger. Third finger. Second finger. Right? All those things. And then, when I use my second finger vibrato, the cool thing is, when you get this fulcrum here, I'm still muting with the first finger, but it allows me to really pull on the note. Now, if I'm going to bend up just my second finger, that's a little tricky. So often, if I want to do a big bend, it's not always going to be with my second finger or my first finger. I can, not so much first finger, but I'll leave the bigger bends to the third finger and the pinky. When I bend with my pinky, once again, I'm not bending actually with my pinky. I can't do that. Excuse me. I'm reinforcing. Now I have my pinky and my third finger behind it, and maybe my second finger too. Right? A little crazy when somebody's listening, you practice that, and you're going, but you need to do that. I spent hours and hours and hours working on my vibrato. I still work on my vibrato constantly. When I hear somebody's got really great vibrato, it just gets me going. I'm like, man, listen to that vibrato. It's killer, and it's exciting, right? Okay, so I'm going to take each finger, and I'm going to try to match it. And don't get discouraged. You'll get it. If you're having a problem with it, you'll get it. So then I want to experiment with how wide I want the vibrato. So let me just backtrack for a second. Sometimes practicing your bend, your vibrato, think of it as like a small bend. So listen, I'm going to bend like, I want to bring it down. That's too but if I take the same technique, speed it up a little bit. It's the same kind of technique as vibrato. Sorry, as a bend, but smaller, maybe a little faster, right? So if you forget what the technique is and you don't bend strings with just your fingers, you bend properly for blues and rock. The reason why I keep on saying for blues and rock, because some people will have their differing opinions. That's also why I did that thumbnail. If you look at all the guys that, blues and rock guys, it's thumbs always over the top of the neck when they're bending. Very rarely do you see somebody bending like this. In the genre that we usually end up talking about. Also, honestly, when I was younger, I saw a picture of Randy Rhoads playing guitar like this. We all saw that one. And so I started playing like that, and I came down with carpal tunnel. So bending strings like this is not great, because you don't have a lot of finger strength for that unless you're using like sevens. So if I'm going to reinforce the bend, right? Try each string. Now also, another question people often ask is, when should I bend vibrato up or down? That's a personal tasting. Obviously, if I'm going to vibrato the high string, I'm probably not going to pull the string downwards because I'll just end up pulling off the neck. So first string I push upwards, right? Second string could be either way, right? I've got some leeway on that. Generally speaking, from the fourth string down, I usually just pull towards the floor. I get a lot more hand strength that way. That's what's going. That doesn't seem right to me. My dog's walking in. Maybe he'll come on screen today. Right? So I'm always pulling this downwards because I have much more hand strength. Check out Albert King when he's playing. You know, he's got those big bends because he tunes down low. He was a lefty, but if you notice those strings, he's pulling those strings towards the floor. So he's always got this sort of motion like this when he's bending those high strings. Right? You know, what I'm getting at, a little off topic, you know, if we do like a, right, when Albert King did it, the guitar was the other way around. So that bend is actually, you know, he's pulling it downwards. So you get a lot more hand strength. Look at Doyle Bramhall play. Same thing. You get those really big bends. I feel like there's much more strength pulling this way because you're using your whole arm as opposed to pushing, and you're not like getting under your fingernails and those little things that actually can kind of be a little annoying, right? Okay, so pulling down, third string. So I usually pull down from even on the third string, I always pull downwards. It's the second string and the high string that I might go in the other directions. Okay. So I will practice different speeds of vibrato, which is really important. I'm cramming a whole bunch of stuff here. But, so. Right? So if I play that track for a second again, you know, it's nice and slow. I don't probably want to get too fast a vibrato. So, you know. Right? So I'll sit there on a track like this going, how about slow? Yeah. Now, on a track like this, where I want to get those nice big long sustaining notes, David Gilmour uses a lot of overdrive, and I don't have as much in this patch. That will help you get those really long singing notes, just to let you know. I would probably, I don't want to go through changing patches right now, but something to think about. You're like, how come I don't sound like Gilmour, those big long ringing notes? Because he has a lot of overdrive on compression and sustain. And even on something like Shine On You Crazy Diamond, where it's mostly clean, it's really heavily compressed, so it's making the notes last longer. Okay, just a little side note. So, my tempo of my song. Let's go back to the top. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So my tempo, I'm going to play against that. Maybe help double that. Right, for more excitement. How about in between? Or going up? So what I'm thinking there is I can start off slow and then bring in more vibrato. Or start off with no vibrato, and as the note starts to kind of fade, I start the slow vibrato into a faster one. How's that? Watch. So like. That's the cool stuff. no vibrato. Right, so no vibrato and add harmony. Right? That's supposed to. I mean, one is, it's day and night to me. All right, so keeping the fingers locked up behind, all coming from my forearm. It's like I'm turning a doorknob, you know, here's an exaggeration like that. And I want to isolate each note and practice the tempo of my vibrato. Try to get that control. Like I said, I can start off slow and end up fast, right? Or fast and opposite. Right? Pretty cool, and that's, you know, you listen to David Gilmour, which is obviously that you can get on my Brett Papa course, Blues Rock Masters. Huge part, and I owe him a great debt of gratitude, and many other guitar players. Think about all the guys I'm friends with, you know, like Matt Schofield, great vibrato, David Gilmour, Robin Ford. Everybody is, it's the thing. The vibrato is huge. When I'm watching somebody play, I don't care what kind of chops they have, if they can rip or not. What I really look for is, do they have a good tone? Like, is it pleasant to listen to? Do they play in time, and are they in tune? And so what I mean by in tune is their vibrato in tune? Do they have vibrato? Is it musical? And vibrato is one way that you can develop your own voice and become more musical. All right, so the next thing is, how do you bend in vibrato? That one is even trickier, because you have to keep the note in tune. So generally, whereas before we had our vibrato note, which is our unbent note, we're going to vibrato it, to bend it to vibrato, of course. We're going to come across the pitch, and we're going to come back down, right? When we bend and vibrato a note, here's our note we're bending to, and we're going to release the pitch. We're not going to try to go up and down between it. That's pretty tricky, so I'm just going to come up to the pitch and bring it back down, all right? So I'll show you what I mean. So here's my E. Right, so I have to keep that finger locked and keep that note in pitch. The most common thing that happens is like this, you know, the note starts to decay or to slide down. So the first thing you want to do is practice the bend. Right? And then locking those fingers, and then working on the vibrato. Releasing that pitch, and I can go big. Right? You know that. And sometimes you get, and that sounds cool to me, that, you know, that noise that rings out. So the technique is really huge. It's the thumb over the top of the neck. It's aligning the thumb properly. If I'm going to bend, say I'm thinking of A minor pentatonic. If I'm pulling over here, everything's over here. I want to get right up on that note. And if you say, well, what if I want to stretch down here? Well, you move. So, see how I kind of slide. I don't necessarily go, unless I have to play that really quickly. More I'm going, ooh, yeah. All right, so I always have that. I'm right on that fret. Also, a final thought, you know, start answering some questions, is I'm right on the fret. Like I'm pushing against the door. I'm not over here. And you see all that space there? Right between the fret and my finger? You don't want that. Because first of all, that means you're pulling this way as opposed to pushing this way. Right? You're up against that fret. It's going to give you a much better sounding note. See what I'm like right up in it. It's supposed to go. I can get some of that buzzy sound on the pitch or on the note because I'm too far away from the fret. So, thumb over the top, reinforce the fingers. Think about turning a doorknob. It really comes down to this very important, this little fulcrum thing going on right there. And staying on top of that, right up on that fret. And then, guys, just watch other people play. Watch their vibrato, the joy of YouTube. Is that you can watch me every week? Is that we can watch everybody play up close and see what they do, like what Van Halen does, or Clapton's got that big hand vibrato. Because when he does unbent notes, sometimes Clapton uses his whole hand, like, which is really cool. And you see Steve Vai doing stuff like that I've stolen as well. It's sort of circular small thing. If I want like a really, kind of go in a circle, but really, the circle doesn't do much. My finger's moving in a circle, but in other words, some people try to just slide back and forth, which an unfretted instrument can do. So you should put frets on it. So I do like a little bit of a circle, and I like that sound. It's really subtle. All right? Even chords. That, you know, you getting that? Chords. If I'm vibratoing chords, that's not that there were two notes. If one note, generally speaking, one note's going to be getting more of the vibrato than a lower note because you have to pull equally. It's really difficult. So kind of what happens if I separate, one will get more of the bend. Maybe that. A little bit. If you know what I'm saying, like this string is moving much more than the second string. So as long as one of them is moving, it'll have the effect of that you're doing both. So, of course, there's the vibrato board. All right, so I'm going to add a tune and any questions. Let's see to get to questions. First of all, thanks for being here. And right after this, well, an hour after this, 6 o'clock Eastern time, I'll be being interviewed by Mark Hopkins on his station. I put the link here and Phil's got it down there as well. Just talking about all sorts of stuff if you haven't had enough of me already. And all my TrueFire courses are on sale, of course, through my website, Jeff-McErlain.com. My Brett Papa course, Blues Rock Masters, which actually has this same track and song where I try to do a bunch of Gilmore stuff. In that whole course, I talk a ton about vibrato and bends and the technique and licks and things that will really focus in on that. So, all right, any questions, anyone? Looks a little quiet on questions. Lots of people here, though. Thanks to everybody for being here. Got a bunch of people, a bunch of peeps here, so that's always fun. Let me go through and say hi to everyone. Phil Mingan, of course, running everything. And Jason Carter, what's going on? Quincy, Jim C, what's up, Jim? Brazil Bush Rocks, what's going on? Sam Stamos, excuse me, Stan. That's my dog. Steve Moore, Jason Carter, S.E. Nesbitt, Fretboard Confidential. That's David Hamburger. What's up, David? Hope you're still here. How's it going, man? Everybody immediately when we're done here, or open another window and subscribe to Fretboard Confidential by my good friend David Hamburger. Great friend and great guitar player. And actually the guy who introduced me to TrueFire. He hooked me up with TrueFire many years ago. I've known David for like 30 years. Zeta, what's going on? How you doing? Christian Armstrong. All right, let me start, see if we have any questions up here. So I saw a few. Okay, I'm going to go back up to the top here. I just want to ask about, okay, the nervous vibrato. What I mean by nervous vibrato is, I kind of talked about it in the beginning, where, you know, when your pit falls in the ground, hold on, stuck to my hand out of my mouse there. All right, so nervous vibrato to me is this. You know, where you sound like, oh, you like when you get up in class the first time and have to speak or public speaking and your voice starts to quiver. That's the same kind of thing can happen really quickly if you don't pay attention. So that's what I mean by nervous vibrato or nervous bent vibrato. You know, that kind of thing. Not my favorite. Keith, 5 Watt World, what's going on? I think, Keith, you have I don't know, you have a live stream tomorrow? We know. There, Phil, post it if you got. Phil also moderates Tim Pierce's and 5 Watt World, Keith's pages. All right. Brazil Bushrocks. How do you practice vibrato at the top of a full step bend? What do you focus on? As I said earlier, I make sure that I bend to the pitch first, say D to E. I can go up to it, right? Get that in tune. And then to start to slightly release that bend and then work on it and be prepared to sound like crap. It's one of those things that you might want to practice by yourself, you know, because, you know, you're many family members around and you're going like, you know, it's painful. So, you know, in a place where you can actually have some time. You know, people ask me, should I practice on amplified or unamplified? Both. You want to do both. Unamplified, I play unamplified guitar all the time, like all the time. And I highly recommend you play your guitar unamplified. There's an acoustic quality to your electrics that you'd get used to playing. But you can't always tell that you're muting correctly when you're playing acoustic sometimes. I mean, playing acoustically on an electric. So you want to do both. So I just focus on the pitch and then start to release the vibrato and see what I can get out of it. This is from Jason Carter. Is it possible to substitute vibrato by solely using the trem arm? Hank Marvin and Shadows in the 60s seem to do that. Yeah, of course. And that's what Gilmour does very often, and Jeff Beck will do as well. And I will if I want a different sound. I didn't focus it on that yet today because you know, I wanted to talk about the left hand. But sure, I love the vibrato part because I can go, I can vibrato a chord, but it also has a little bit different sound. I have my bridge floating, as does Gilmour and Jeff Beck, so I can go in either direction. So I can pull up a little bit. So I'm kind of going, here's my pitch. Kind of going up and down. I'm not just going down. I can do that, but I love the control of the vibrato with the bar that you can get in between the two. And you can't quite do that with your fingers. At all, actually. On an unbent note. But yeah. You get the stuff you just can't get. You know? Well, that Jeff Beck kind of sound stuff. Now there's Stanley. I mean, Bo. Here's Bo on camera looking at my guitar. This is Bo. You guys can see him. All right. He's licking my he's licking my microphone. All right. Bo's about a year old, and when I got him, they said he was going to be about 40 pounds, and Bo is 65 pounds, pushing 70 now. Can you see? Bo, say hi. There he is. All right. Get him on camera for a sec. There he is. That's Bo. All right. Stanley's sleeping. Stanley's the other dog. Okay. So, thanks for the top chat. Thank you very much, everyone who's hitting me with the top chat. I appreciate that. And my dog is now making his presence known. So the tremolo with the bar, yeah, I use it all the time. Definitely with chords, though. And the fun thing is when you watch someone who's like a real good at playing a Bigsby, which I'm not. I don't have any guitars with Bigsby on them, but if you check out someone like Jason Laughlin, there's a way to play Bigsby's that don't quite sound the same as Strat 6-screw things, and they'll sound different than Floyd Rose's and all that. So I use this all the time, but I love that I can do both. To me, that's a different sound. I have to work to get that. Here, I just bend and then do it, you know. So is it important, this is in Quincy, is it necessary to know a couple of different vibratos, like having different outfits for different occasions? Yeah, I would say knowing different kinds, like working through different speeds and widths for sure, because it's all another way to convey emotion. And when you're playing, right, it's another way to connect, to add musicality, right? So that says something, right? Right? That bigger vibrato suddenly brings it up more to the front into your face. Michael Cope, what's going on? All right. Jump down to questions. In caps, according to Phil. Jump to the bottom. Okay. When you swap between the whammy and the when do you swap? This is from Phil Jones. When do you swap between the whammy bar and finger vibrato? Whenever I want. Right? I mean, I'm so comfortable with both at this point from practicing the crap out of them. And that it doesn't really, it's just whatever feels natural. Now, if I just want to bring it to the point here, one thing that you do want to consider is when you're changing guitars, you know, like I'm going to like a Les Paul scale or a Gibson scale here, it's going to feel different. Right, the scale of the neck is different, and I use 10s on both just because I can't be bothered using 11s on a Les Paul or 10s on 9s on the Strat. Like, it doesn't feel right. Just put 10s in everything, and I know a lot of guys who actually do that. I know Robin does that too. We talked about it. It's like, 11s are too heavy on the Les Paul, and 9s are too light on a Strat, and so I just play 10s on both. But that's something to think about, that there is a difference in the feel when you do the two. But when I switch between the bar vibrato and finger, I don't think about it anymore. I just kind of go for what sounds, for the sound that I'm going for, excuse me. Okay, it appears, okay, when do you, oh, it jumped again. I hate when it does that. I'm missing who sent me that. Steve Moore, thank you. Thanks for another great lesson. How was your gig at the Twisted Root? The Bitter End? Twisted Root, Bitter End. I like it. It went really well, thanks. We were going to be back at the beginning of June. It went well. Thanks for asking. I had a great time. A little rusty, but that's okay. You know, these things happen. You know, I haven't played at a gig in a year and 2 months. But it was fun. I really had a good time. It was sold out, so that was also super fun. And the energy in the room was really great. People were really digging it. Okay. Steve Moore, you've done a great job explaining. Would you ever try to vibrato the whammy at the same time? Yeah, you know, Gilmore kind of does that, but I can never really make that work so well. It always sounds weird. So I usually do one or the other. I'll hold the finger up and then use the vibrato, or just use my hand. He does a weird thing where he seems to kind of vibrato with his finger and the bar, and every time I do that, it seems to cancel out the note. So that's his thing. It just, I'd have to work to figure out how to do it, and so I don't. Best pickup for vibrato, or does it matter? This is Jim C. Yeah, you know, some neck pickup's best for vibrato. Well, yeah, well, it depends. Watch, if I want to get like, you know, like if I'm getting that kind of a little fuzzy sound in there, but it's just the tone you want to get. If I'm gonna get the neck pickup, especially on a humbucker, you can get a lot of that kind of clapping, that kind of thing. But so if I go to the bridge, right? Right, so the pickup for me is just a sonic choice, honestly. I don't think one lasts longer than the other. It's still the string just ringing out. All right. DWC, no question, just a huge fan. Thanks for all the great lessons here on TrueFire. You're quite welcome. Thank you, DWC. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for everybody. Daniel Hornecker, thank you so much for the top chat. As always, thank you. And thank you very much for being here. And thanks for the top chat. Really appreciate that as well. How hard are you gripping, pressing down on a string during the vibrato? As much as I need to. I know it sounds, I don't mean it like the Zen, I'm only pressing down as hard as I need to. And that's really the best answer, because if you find out you're like, steel grip on the guitar, that's not good either. Just as much as you have to. And that's why I say to practice bending and vibrato solely with real intent. Half steps. One song that was great for me was All Your Love, that little great thing. That was the first time I encountered like a half step bend. A great crash course is all the solos on Shine On You Crazy Diamond, the first ones. Side one, showing my age, of Wish You Were Here. And I learned a lot from those solos, like that, Yeah, what do I got? So we're gonna pick up. Yeah. All that stuff, I learned so much about bend and control and dynamics and vibrato from that solo. So at some point I'd like to tell Gilmore that, but of course, everybody tells him that. You're like, yeah, thanks, yeah, whatever. This is Stephen Moore. That's right. The top jet seems to just jump up and down. It's weird. Do you recommend trying 7-gauge or 8-gauge strings for super light? No, I just go with what you can do. I like 10s. I guess I could get used to 9s. 11s are just too heavy for me. I don't want to start changing string gauge. I find that I like a little bit of tension and fight in the right hand, so super light strings just feel really weird to me. I'd have to change my whole touch with the right hand. So 10s seem to work fine for me right now. I tried 11s on the Gibson scale, and it was just too much. And I realized that there's really no reason for it. Some people like really, really heavy strings. I'm not that guy. I don't have like big, super heavy hands and things like that. I just like super strong hands. Not big hands. I got guitar player hands. So, live stream tomorrow about the bursts. 5-Watt World, go over there tomorrow and watch Keith's live stream on the bursts, which we did. I did some music for that, and another great documentary that Keith has put together on the burst. Okay. Okay, how can I know which of your courses are good for me at my level? That's a tough one, I know. I don't know what your level is, obviously, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic. The Blues Survival Guide's good, beginning blues rock soloing, if you're kind of at, I don't want to say lower, but earlier level. Lower sounds not politically correct. If you want a lower level, but you know what I mean. Blues Rock Survival, the Blues Survival Guide Rhythm and Lead Edition I think is cool. What's fun is like the authentic blues grooves, the 30 authentic blues grooves. Just learning tunes is always great. I think those are going to be good ones, and the beginning blues rock soloing is good. That's a little more technique based, but not really difficult, but I think really useful. Okay. Go to the questions. Okay, so some questions that maybe Phil hasn't gotten to yet. What do I think about Chris Buck? I think Chris Buck's a great guitar player. He's actually of the younger guys, YouTube guys. I think he's my favorite spectacular guitar player. Just looking back up here. Can I talk about combining, this is from Ed Dury, combining pinch harmonics with vibrato? Yeah, so the pinch harmonic obviously is when you choke up on the pick right here to get that kind of squeal. The volume on. So it's the same thing. It's the vibrato technique doesn't change. It's all the same. It's just being able to get comfortable going. Right? Right, that kind of thing. So it's definitely the same exact technique on the left hand, and it's just getting used to finding those pinch harmonics, which takes a little bit of work, right? You got to figure out where those are, you know. So just a quick reminder, at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to be live with an interview with Mark Hopkins over at his site. We'll hit you with the link if you want to go check that out. That'll be tonight at 6 p.m., so in like an hour. Excuse me, so if like I said, if you've not had enough of me talking, you can hear me talk about myself. Hey, Tom Beatty, thank you so much for the top chat. I appreciate that as well. Thank you. Baby John, how do you approach the vibrato on Unison bend like the one in Catfish Blues? Okay, well, that's a great question. On a Unison bend, I'm just going to vibrato the bent note, keeping the first finger, the unbent note pretty straight. Right, so it's kind of moving, but sympathetically. It's not really moving that much. It's this though. Again, a whole lot of love there. No, he isn't confused. Okay, all right. So yeah, I'm just bending and vibratoing. I'm vibratoing the bent note really only. It's too hard to do the other one. But if it moves a little bit, it's just because your hand's moving. This is from Keen. What's up, man? How you doing? Good to see you. Do you jump right into vibrato on a long sustained notes, or do you let it sit and pitch for a moment? Whatever I want, right? That's the whole point. Is that it's up to you. So sometimes I'll just let the note sit, and then bring in the vibrato. Right? One thing you'll discover pretty quickly is that pretty much every guitar has a dead spot here and there. Almost every guitar I've ever encountered will have some notes sound super great, and then other ones you're like, maybe not as much. Like I just found sometimes on this Black Tuttle, which I love, the B on the G string on the 16th fret doesn't ring as strong as the B on the 12th fret. This is on like almost every guitar in the world. So when you really start to know your guitar, you're like, okay, I really want that note to ring out. I'm gonna play that on a different string. It's not anything negative about that particular guitar. Every guitar has those things, that little idiosyncratic things that, if I just play that note, say, and it's happened on my Les Paul too, there's like one note, you're like, If I play it over here, it's perfect. If I just play it quickly, like a normal thing, but if I want a long sustained note, sometimes certain spots on your particular guitar will not ring as well as other guitars. So that's one of the things about knowing your guitar too. That's just a little side thing when you talk about extended notes. Sometimes you're trying to sustain a note and you're like, this is not really sustaining. Why is it not sustaining? Try it on a different string and then it might do the trick. All right. Okay. You look so young in those early TrueFire courses. 16 years ago was my first TrueFire course. So yeah, tell me about it. when I watch, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, that's the thing about living on screen a lot. You know, it's pretty funny seeing yourself like 15 years ago. Yeah, it was 15 years ago was the first one. 15 and a half years ago. All right. Okay. Any tips for hand and string health for an older player with creaky hands? Just don't overdo it. Okay. You should also think about if you're having hand problems. Here's what I want to stress to everyone. I've had hand problems at different points in my life. You just don't want to push it. And also there is absolutely no shame or anything like that to going to lighter string gauges. You want to play as long as you possibly can, right? So if I started having really bad hand problems for whatever reason, whether it's age or repetitive stress or whatever those things would be, and every guitar player I know, every single one of them has had some sort of repetitive stress issue. Every single one, whether it's their right hand, the left hand, whether it's their shoulder, you know, all this stuff. But definitely string gauges are really important. I know due to the pandemic, a bunch of my friends were using 11s, went to 10s because you weren't gigging. I play a lot harder on gigs. But if you're at home and you're like, oh, my hands are really starting to give me a problem, switch to 9s or switch to 8s. Switch to whatever you got to do to continue to play the instrument. There's no shame in it. People feel like almost like it's like this manly thing. I play 13s or 12s, or I'm like, who cares? You know, I know the cliche, you know, Billy Gibbons uses 7s, B.B. King uses 8s, you know, they all sound great. It's all the way you play. It's music, it's not athletics, who cares? So whatever allows you to play the guitar. And yeah, thanks, Tom, for the top chat again. I appreciate it again. Thank you. Yeah, whatever you got to do. Whatever you got to do. Take lots of breaks, though. That's one thing, and I always make sure I'm warmed up. I don't play with cold hands because that will cause a problem. And also, taking lots of breaks. Like I said, if I haven't played for a while and I start working on chopsy stuff, I can really screw my hands up in a day. That will hurt for like a week, just because I overdid it. You know, I just was having so much fun shredding, and then the next morning I'm like, oh fuck. But if I take breaks and do it slowly and build up to it, I'm always okay. So it's the building up to it that's super important. Jeff Sheets said that every guitar player needs a teacher. What do you think does a great player like you really need an education? And do you use TrueFire? I am taking guitar lessons again. And I think next week I'm going to have my guitar teacher on. I studied with him when I was right out of Berkeley, and he used to teach at Berkeley. And when I take lessons with somebody now, you're never too good. There's always something that somebody could show you. And I was a jazz major in college, and I just let a lot of the jazz stuff go away. And I have no desire to be a jazz guitar player, but I'm always interested in expanding my vocabulary. Also, I was getting bored with my own guitar playing. I needed someone to hold me accountable and say like, hey, you should work on this. And when you're coming to somebody who's coming from a real straight-ahead jazz background, it's been really fun because I'm confident enough in my own life now that I don't care to play bebop because I don't have that ship has sailed, which is fine because I don't love bebop guitar. Like it's not a passion of mine. I love hearing great players do it. If I had loved it, I would have done it. But what I also love, you know, guys like Scott Henderson and John Schofield, like the guys who mix those things. And I can do some of that. You don't hear me play this stuff a lot. And it was funny, one of the guys who's a TrueFire guy came to the gig, and was like, I've never heard you play like this. This is nothing like any of your TrueFire courses. Because my records are nothing like my TrueFire courses. They're not blues records. Because the music, as much as I love blues, and I do, my music is a little more fusion-y, as you guys can hear sometimes in the intro, like that rock fusion, definitely influenced by Jeff Beck and guys like him, and Scott Henderson, and all those things I listened to in college and growing up. So, yeah, so I should, if it works out, I'll have him on, and he's going to talk about some jazz stuff and some stuff to kind of get jazz in your blues, and I can bounce off. And we're going to do some stuff together because I think he knows so much cool stuff that I'm really enjoying relearning with him and thinking about just playing guitar differently. because it's just another approach. And do I use TrueFire? Yeah, sure. I will, most definitely. I have the all access because, work for the company or work with the company. And sure, I mean, guys who I'll look at, I will always look at I want an idea of Frank Vignola, all my friends, of course, but I end up sometimes looking at Tim Lurch or I'm forgetting the other jazz guitar. Sometimes I just want an idea, like, oh, I'm going to check that out. Or Larry Carlton, hear what Larry Carlton has to say. He's always got something good to say. And that Robin guy, too. I always check out Robin's courses because he'll just play something. I'm like, okay, I need to get that. So that's a long answer. So yes, I do take lessons. And then also, when you take lessons with somebody else, it gives me stuff that I can borrow or steal or pass along, Hey, Rusty Philippus, he is right here. He just chimed in. It will be an honor. Yeah, so I think we're good for next week, right, Russ? So we talk about what you want. But I told Russ the other day, I've been having a total ball working on some of this stuff that I have not worked on in ages. And it's so funny, like we've got some of the handouts he gave me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I still have these from 30 years ago. So it's been, I'm having a great time. I haven't been this excited about playing guitar in a long time. So thank you, Russ. Thanks for twisting my arm. I was just so busy, and he's like, hey, what's up? And so we're going to check out next week with Russ, and we're going to talk about some stuff. Whatever Russ wants to talk about, we'll talk about. All right. You got to bend more, right? So here's the joy that you'll see next week, as we'll talk about it, is, Russ is coming from a straight-ahead jazz background, worked with George Benson and lots of others. And when I was first studying with him, I was all into Alan Halsworth and Yngwie Malmsteen. So, I was all over into the rock stuff, and I had a ton of hair. And so it was fun. So now it's like kind of this thing where it's coming back around, and the joy of studying with someone, or whether it's officially or not, is you're always pushing yourself. And I feel it's important. One of the great and beautiful things about music, many things, or being an instrumentalist or working, it keeps your brain working, right? I mean, to me, that is one of my favorite parts. I'm never done. There's always something to work on, and there's always something to think about, and I'm always, my Yngwie mentioned, Zvili. Yes. It's keeping me sharp in my mind, because the excitement, like laying in bed going, okay, if I superimpose that over this, and those extensions work over this, and it's really been cool, because as I've gotten older, my ears have enlarged, probably physically, but musically, and then I want to have those things catch up. So the more you start putting names to things and hearing them, the more they start making them into your way into your playing. So, talk about some of my friends. Jason Laughlin, I know he takes guitar lessons sometimes. A lot of great guitar players I know take guitar lessons for all the same reason, because somebody's got something that you don't got, and I'm all about stealing other people's stuff and making it my own. Okay. All right, so I gotta take a little break, because I am doing the live show in an hour, or less than an hour at this point. I want to eat something beforehand. So Mark Hopkins, I think I still have that in here. Is this? Nope, I don't know what that is. That could be. Is that his thing? Hey Phil, can you post that again, the Mark Hopkins link for me? So that will be at 6 o'clock Eastern time. And yeah, guys, all my courses are on sale. I know TrueFire is having a big sale today too, But like George Benson said, if you don't want me to steal it, then don't play it in front of me. Yeah, I love that line, right? If you don't want me to steal it, then don't play it in front of me. That's exactly true. And I've heard, Robin was telling me he jammed with Larry Carlton once, and then suddenly he's like, hey, wait a minute. So yeah, everybody steals from everybody else. And after a couple minutes or a few little times around playing, it becomes your own, and everybody. But, all right, so all my courses are on sale through my website, jeffmcearlain.com, all of them 20% off. background tracks. I know you guys have been really super generous and gotten all this stuff. I appreciate it. Thanks for everybody who's hit the top chat today, and thank you for everyone who has hit the Venmo and the PayPal, and it keeps me going doing this. And I will see you hopefully in an hour. Please go over there. Mark's a really cool guy. He's trying to build up his channel. If you stop for a couple minutes and say hi and then subscribe, it'd be really cool. Also, David Hamburger, who was on here earlier, please subscribe to his channel, Fretboard Confidential. I think you really enjoy it. Fingerstyle blues, and he's just so good at it. And yeah, I think that's it. This is Ida. Are the songs at True Fire the same that you're selling here, the 14 back tracks? Yeah, the 14 tracks, the blues ones, except for 2 or 3 more, are from my In the Jam, which has been fun because the In the Jam, you can't download those and play along with those. You have to have that thing. So they were really great tracks. And the In the Jam track, the In the Jam course is a ton of fun because I play and then I talk about what I played. But those tracks are with a live and real band. And I'm in the middle of working on 3 new courses, so those would be looking forward to those. All right, everyone, I will see you hopefully in an hour over at Mark Hopkins. And when you watch this on the replay, you can go to Mark Hopkins and check me out anyway. All right, everyone, thanks so much. I'll see you soon. Thank you to Phil Mingan, as always, for doing such a great job. Great friend, great guy. I'll see you guys later.